the issue was that drove a wedge between Donald Trump and some of his biggest supportive Republican women, like Nancy Mace, like Lauren Boebert, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it was the Epstein files. And as much as I disagree with them, some of them are still in Congress on so many things, I do give them credit for not having bent the knee when he brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room and tried to bully her into not voting for the release of the files.
Andrew here with the veil of power. There is a receipt on this one that changes everything, and almost nobody on that CNN panel said it clearly. Marjorie Taylor Greene told the New York Times Magazine on the record, and that Trump personally told her he opposed releasing the Epstein files because his friends would get hurt, his words, when she stood with Epstein survivors. Anyway, he called her a traitor and threatened to fund a primary against her. So while Scott Jennings begs Democrats to extend a little grace, remember this break was never about conscience. And do not forget MTG once hunted an 18-year-old shooting survivor through Congress, calling him a crisis actor. So let's get into it.
Even if you say that the only thing that is important about those three individuals in particular is that they're anti-Semitic, what does it say about the president that he was totally fine with them 6 months ago?
Well, and they were totally fine with him.
What does it say?
Look, he attracted a lot of people. And some of the people that he attracted, like, that have those views, I completely and totally disagree with. And he has been quite clear about his views on these issues. And he has led the party away from those views. And that's frankly one of the reasons they're not in it anymore.
He spoke on the phone with Tucker Carlson about 6 weeks ago.
What did he say? What did he say about him last week?
But why? I mean, look, you're arguing to me that they are repulsive people who are anti-Semitic. The president of the United States is on the phone with them.
He disavowed them last week.
Let's start with the receipt, because it changes everything. And it came from Marjorie Taylor Greene's own mouth. She told the New York Times Magazine on the record that Trump personally told her he opposed releasing the Epstein files because, in his words, his friends would get hurt. Sit with that. The president told a sitting member of Congress that releasing files about a convicted child sex trafficker's network would hurt his friends. Not a leak, not an anonymous source. That is Greene on the record describing what he said to her face. After she stood with Epstein survivors at a press conference, he called her a traitor. By November, she announced she was resigning rather than face a primary he promised to fund against her. So let's be clear what kind of story this is. Not conscience, coercion. She was told the quiet part out loud, and when she did not fall in line, she got threatened out of her seat. The conscience narrative only survives if you never read what she said about why it happened. Now the timing, because it is no coincidence, per CBS News and YouGov, polling from May, Trump's net approval among white non-college educated adults, the group that won in both elections, fell from plus 36 points last February to minus 8 in May, a 44-point collapse in his most loyal foundation. And it happened as inflation hit. The Iran war dragged on, and the 2024 promises smacked into what the administration actually delivered. Greene did not have a moral awakening. The polling moved, and the defection followed. So that is the sequence. It is always the sequence. The loyalty runs exactly as deep as the approval numbers, and not 1 point. Deeper. So watch what Scott Jennings did with all this. He called these figures repulsive and anti-Semitic, while defending the president who was on the phone with Tucker Carlson 6 weeks ago and only disavowed them last week, as if a week-old disavowal erases years of active embrace. Then David Hogg asked the question that collapsed the frame. If they are so repulsive, what does it say about the president that he was totally fine with them 6 months ago? Jennings could not answer honestly, because the honest answer is simple. They were useful right up until they became a liability. And here's why David Hogg had the standing to say it. At 18, having just survived a mass shooting at his high school, he came to Capitol Hill to lobby for gun reform. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, before she was even elected, chased him through those halls, calling him a crisis actor, telling anyone who would listen the massacre was staged and he was a paid plant. She hunted him through the halls of Congress. So when Jennings asked Democrats to extend a little grace, understand who is being asked to extend it and to whom. And here's the part that gets missed. Hogg did not slam the door. He said, come on the show, answer for it directly, prove it. A door open with a condition. From someone targeted as a teenager by the very person now asking for acceptance. Grace is not amnesia. Accountability first, then we talk. That is the bare minimum. Because history already ran this experiment with Joseph McCarthy. The senators who backed him loudest. The operatives who built careers in his orbit. When public opinion turned, they did not admit they were wrong. They quietly rewrote their stories, discovered reservations they never mentioned at the time, and hoped nobody kept the tapes. That is the bet every MAGA defector is making now, so that the relief of seeing them break with Trump will stop you from checking the timing. We are checking the timing. The receipt is in the New York Times Magazine. Trump said his friends would get hurt. She stood with survivors. He called her a traitor, and now she is leaving. That is the whole story, and it has nothing to do with conscience. If this landed, drop a comment and subscribe. Andrew out. Let's go.